Welcome everybody to LinkedIn Live Leadership number 23. Good afternoon. I hope you've had a really good week so far. Today we're going to be talking about powerful emotional intelligence. I want to share with you my top 5 ideas to improve your emotional intelligence, particularly as a leader. My name is Gary Crosby. I'm an action coach, business coach here in my office in Peterborough this week in Alton Southgate. And the whole purpose of this series is simply to share with you some tips and ideas that I've learned through my leadership career, both in the Royal Air Force, a 31-year career in the RAF, some time in the corporate world, and for the last 3 years as a business coach. And let me tell you that coaching business owners about their emotional intelligence and the impact that has on their success is a really powerful thing to do. So, nice and simple objective today. I just want you to get to the end of this 10 minutes and think, you know what, that's piqued my interest in emotional intelligence. I didn't know those things. I'm interested in that now. So if you get that out of today, I'll be very happy with that. So what is emotional intelligence and why is it so powerful? Well, you might hear people referring to it as EQ, shorthand for emotional intelligence. It's how you recognize and manage your emotions, as well as how you respond to the emotions of others. And you can see how that could be really important in both domestic and business situations. Now, I still think The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is the best personal development book ever written. I'm working my way through many of the others, but in that book, Stephen Covey talks about the gap between stimulus and response, this unique human capacity we have to be able to choose our response. Yeah, it could be fight or flight or freeze, that moment where you just really don't know what to do. But in highly emotionally intelligent people, it could be a calm word. It could be an action that just diffuses a situation or improves the situation, takes everybody on to the next step. So it's really important how we manage that gap between the stimuluses that we get all day long and the response that we give. Now, the good news is that you can learn EQ. Emotional intelligence can be a learned skill, and certainly the more you understand about emotional intelligence, the more likely it is that you're going to choose a good response when something comes up. So let me share with you 5 ideas that I've had about emotional intelligence, how I think you can improve yours, particularly if you're in a business leadership situation. Now, the first one of these is all about awareness. Okay, so I want you to kind of note the emotions that you get during the day. You could even actually write these down if you want to, because the more aware you are of those emotions as they pop up, then the more likely you are to be able to manage and control them well. You know, it might be something like a little bit of anxiety over a deadline that you've got to reach. It might be some anger that you've got with a colleague that you're working with. You could be really chilled out and relaxed during a call with a friend or a lunch with a friend, or you might be really pumped up and excited about going to the gym. It doesn't matter about those emotions in the sense that as long as you note down what they are, then that's going to help you to manage and control them. Noting these is the first step at better understanding and control them, but also it's a good idea to note how your behavior changes when you feel these emotions. So it might be that that anxiety over a deadline actually causes you to become a little bit more distracted and a little bit more disorganized. And again, recognizing how you behave, having had that emotional impact, is also very important. One other good idea in this area for awareness, of course, is to get some feedback from other people, right? So find some people you trust, ask them for some feedback. It's tough for you to be objective about yourself, and then see what people say about you and your emotional responses to situations. And Marshall Goldsmith, one of the best executive coaches in the world, he says there's only one proper response to feedback, and that is simply to say, thank you. There's no point in arguing over that feedback, just accept it for what it is. So that's the first bit. Be aware of the emotions as they affect you in your day-to-day business. The second one, you'll not be surprised perhaps to hear, is that it's all about responsibility, right? So after this stimulus, after you've spent some time thinking about what your reaction might be, and that could just be instantaneous, what happens next? That's your responsibility. And emotionally intelligent people who accept that, and they're not looking for somebody else to blame for the way that they respond, that's when EQ levels start to rise. Yeah, because at this point you're accepting that whatever you do and whatever you say, however you react, positive or negative, that is down to you. Learning to accept that responsibility and accountability is good for your EQ levels. Third it's a really good idea to see if you can work out what it is that triggers you. Okay, so some of that stimulus in the first place. Now, let's imagine you've got a view of yourself as a sort of a very patient, a very compassionate problem solver. And then do you get surprised sometimes when you suddenly find yourself becoming irritated and flustered or maybe angry at something when something unexpected happens? That's the trigger. These are triggers in your world. Another good book, by the way, by Marshall Goldsmith, all about triggers. The bad news about triggers is that these things are all around you all the time. So in my house, I have a fridge which beckons me every time I make a cup of tea because it's got snacks in it. And, that's a trigger for me to have something to eat when maybe I don't really need to have something to eat. It's the buzz of an email in your pocket when you're face to face with someone and you're having a conversation, and suddenly you feel that little buzz and you want to reach in and find out what that message or email is all about. It could be just, a colleague who just rubs you up the wrong way. It doesn't matter what you do, what he does, or what he says, it just rubs you up the wrong way. These are all triggers in your life. Recognizing the triggers, recognizing that they create this emotional response in you is a vital first step in being able to control and manage your response to those triggers. You can change your response sometimes when you realize what it is that's triggered you. Yeah, that's a good thing to do. And when you get really clever at this, you may even be able to avoid the trigger in the first place by coming to work in the office, which doesn't have a fridge, so I can't have a snack. Good. The fourth tip is all about the choice that you make. You remember we said there's a choice between stimulus and response. Well, this one is all about making a positive choice. So let's imagine that you recognize your emotional energy levels are rising. You can feel whatever that is, whether it's anxiety or excitement or fear or anger or whatever emotion you're feeling, you can feel it rising, but you recognize that in this situation, it would be a really bad idea to let those things out. So at this point, you have to make a decision to remain calm, to make a positive choice, not to allow that emotion to bubble to the surface. But you can take that high emotional energy out for a run or for a walk at lunchtime, or maybe take it to the gym for a good session in the gym, or maybe just an energetic game with the kids after work. You're going to let that energy out, but you recognize and you've made a positive choice to stay calm. I can't remember where I read this last week. Somebody was saying that one of the primary qualities of a really good leader is their ability to remain calm. And of course, that's about good emotional intelligence and making a positive choice when you're faced with that trigger. All right, now finally, the final tip of the 5 is to do with understanding other people, right? We said at the beginning that EQ is all about not only just understanding yourself, but understanding others too. So this is all about empathy and your ability to stand in somebody else's shoes. Because as always, there's a couple of sides to every situation, positive or negative. And just like you, your family and your friends and your business colleagues always get triggered by something in their environment. Yeah. What I like to do in this kind of situation is if I can see a little bit of tension rising in an emotional situation, is to try and mentally swap places with the other person. Now, this is not an easy thing to do, but you're starting to think then, well, if I was that person standing in that position, what is it that's made me say these things? What is it that's made me reach this conclusion? What is it that's made me take this position on a situation? And try and understand the pressures they're facing or the emotions that they're facing, because by doing that, I can start to get a feeling for why the conversation is going the way it is, why the situation is going the way it is. Switching places is a good way for you to then give a very measured response, because if you know that they are under a lot of pressure for something, you can take that into account when you make your response. Okay, so that was the final tip of 5. But I've got a couple of other things. There were a couple of other things that I was thinking about this last night that just popped into my head, and I thought, well, I'll just tag them on at the end because I think they are still important things. This first one in particular, because I see this quite a lot, I think it's really important. Emotionally intelligent people very rarely see themselves as victims. Yeah, they've taken responsibility for the situation they find themselves in. They've accepted ownership for the situation they find themselves in, and they're starting to look for solutions to make the situation better, even if that solution feels like it's out of reach at the moment or beyond their grasp at this point. So think about the way you see yourself. And if you're seeing yourself as a victim and you work on some of these other areas of emotional intelligence, you might be able to get yourself to the point where that's not your starting point. You're not a victim if you can take ownership and accountability. The second finishing point is all around the idea of independent thought. And I think emotionally intelligent people maintain independent thought. Right? It's so easy to go with the herd, to go with the crowd, to be a bit of a people pleaser, to be the sort of person who says yes all the time. But a good emotional intelligence means you can maintain that independence of thought, and you can make your own choices. You can follow your own ideas. You can stand apart from the crowd a little bit. You don't feel like you have to always be that people pleaser, as I say. So the final point for improving your emotional intelligence: maintain that independence of thought. Don't be afraid to think independently. All right, so that was my top 5 ideas for emotional intelligence. I hope you found that useful. If you did, give me a thumbs up on LinkedIn, put a comment in the box if there's something there that was useful for you. If you're watching it on YouTube later on, then hit subscribe and hit that little notification bell, because we do this every week. I do this every week, Wednesday at midday, and you'll get a little nudge to let you know that there's some new content. So I'll be back next Wednesday at midday, as I said, for LinkedIn Live Leadership number 24, just sharing my ideas and tips to help you become a better leader. Have a really great week, and we'll see you next Wednesday.